New Ulm. I'm Rebecca Fliszar, the dietitian with the Hearts Beat Back Heart of New Ulm project, working to reduce and eventually eliminate heart attacks in the 56073 zip code. All right, so tonight we're going to work on a little bit of a Mexican dish that you can slide into the oven and have ready for your family when they get home. This is going to be an easy enchilada bake, and it's going to have a lot of great vegetables, some great seasonings. We're going to use corn tortillas, and what I've been featuring lately is the rotisserie chicken. So convenient and easy to use, is low cost, and works for everyone in your family, and it includes multiple recipes. So what we're going to entail tonight, we have onion and red pepper, we have some ground cumin, chili powder, oregano, we're going to use some salsa, garlic, cheese, chicken broth, lettuce, just a whole array of different foods that are going to fit into this perfectly. All right, so we're going to start with just a little bit of prep work. We're going to get that onion rolling. Most of our time is going to be spent on the stove, and this does require some oven time as well. So I have made this recipe ahead of time, and I'll be able to show you that when we're done with the show tonight. We'll get that off. I did choose a yellow onion. This is a strong flavored onion. Remember, a red or a white is going to have a very different flavor. So if you're looking for something a little more mild, you do want to stick with the yellow. And the different colors are going to each have a different flavor as well. So make sure you know those and tailor them to your family and their taste as well. Let's see, a little slippery tonight. There we go. We're going to just dice this up a little bit. Now you can choose a different color of peppers as well. I went with a red. Remember, your yellow is going to be a little bit sweeter. Green is going to be a little bit more mild. And red has just a little bit of kick to it. So that's what we'll be using tonight because this is a Mexican meal. Get that all diced up, ready to go. I am an onion fan, so I'm going to add a little bit of extra to the dish tonight. There we go. Remember, when we're opening up that red pepper, we're going to cut it in 4 pieces. I'm going to avoid those seeds in the middle. And that way we have very little waste. There we go. Set that aside. We're going to cut that into nice little strips. We're going to julienne. It's called julienning. And then we'll go ahead and dice that up from there. And you see that white flesh is in there, and that's fine. That's not going to affect the taste. It adds a little consistency. You want to waste as little as possible when we're using these peppers. They aren't the cheapest vegetable, although if you're working on your garden, now is a great time to include those in there as well. I'll go ahead and finish this one up. So just a very small amount of basic prep work. Once these are all ready to go, we'll go ahead and bring it over to the stove. All right, now that we're at the stove, we're going to go ahead with our basic prep. Add our 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We're going to heat that up. And while that's heating up, we'll go ahead and break down our rotisserie chicken just a bit. Remember, we want to take that skin off and utilize as much of our white meat as possible. So we're going to just slice that off. We're able to pull that skin back pretty easily. That's going to expose that nice chicken breast right there. And that's what we want to use for this recipe. I'm going to just cut off about a cup of that. And we'll dice that up just a bit. You know, I do like to use these rotisserie chickens quite often. Most recipes can be adapted to this as well if it calls for a regular chicken breast. So if you're short on time, if you got to get out the door and you want to make sure your family's having a heart-healthy meal, this is a great way to do that. So, all right, I can hear our oil is heating up. We're going to go ahead and add in our pepper and our onions. Get that going. You do want to make sure those onions become about transparent. Once they start turning colors, that's our sign that they're about done. Peppers are going to be a little bit harder to tell, so follow the onion cues here. We'll get those going. And then, of course, with any recipe, I always like to throw in a little extra garlic. Again, I enjoy the flavor and as well as the heart-healthy benefits. That in there. And you know, just these 3 simple ingredients are already going to have your house smelling great and make people start to ask what's for dinner. So we'll go ahead and keep with our prep. I'm going to continue to slice off these pieces of the chicken. We're staying with our white meat only. We'll mix this up. Our garlic is already starting to brown. I'm going to turn that down just a bit. We'll set that on a medium heat. Okay, from here we're going to start throwing in some of our chicken. that nice and diced up. And this recipe has a few kind of interesting ingredients that are going to go along with this. We're going to add some cream of chicken, and that's really going to thicken up our base here. If you don't have cream of chicken on hand, something like a cream of celery, or if you wanted to go with a cream of mushroom and omit the chicken, this could be a nice vegetarian meal as well. You know, most of our recipes can be tailored to your different diet style. If you're following a gluten-free, this would work out well as well. Add that in there. I like to add a lot of chicken. It's really going to beef this up and make it a really nice, full, thick meal. It's going to fill up your kids or your spouse and make sure that they're getting a good hearty meal for the night. All right, so once that's rolling, we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of balsamic vinegar. It's going to add a little flavor and temper some of our vegetables we have in there. Along with that, like I mentioned, we're going to add the cream of chicken soup. And this is just going to make a really nice sauce, and it's going to take the place of a lot of that extra cheese we'd normally put in an enchilada dish. We will add some cheese into this recipe, but by cutting that down, we can reduce our overall saturated fat and cholesterol intake. All right, let's mix that up a bit. Okay, our next ingredient then is going to be our diced tomatoes. We're going to add that with the juice. And this one I actually chose with fennel and red pepper. So it's going to have a distinct flavor. Fennel, remember, has that black licorice quality to it. Fennel is actually in our herb group and falls in with garlic. So has a lot of the same principles that I like in those foods, and yet has a very, very distinct flavor. Fennel can be used by its stalk, by its bulb, or its seed, so it's very versatile. If you have room in your herb garden, fennel is definitely a good addition. I'm going to add a little bit of salsa to this as well, just to add a little extra flavor. This does have green pepper in there, so you're going to have a unique flavor with that as well. You can see this sauce is thickening up quite well. Our seasonings then that are going to go along with this are our oregano. You know, anytime we're adding seasonings, this is not something that needs to be measured out. This is definitely an eyeball approach. We're going to add a little bit of our cumin. And then I'm going to throw in a little bit of our chili powder. All of this is always to taste. We really have no calories. We have some benefits in our herbs and seasonings, but with that small amount, we can really kind of put that to taste. Now this is getting quite thick, so I just want to thin it out just a little bit. I'm going to use some low sodium chicken broth. About half a cup there. And we're going to cook that down a little bit, and then we'll be ready to put this all together, and we're going to toss it in the oven. Heat that up just a bit. Remember, tomatoes are very high in antioxidants, and we actually find that those tomatoes that are in a can actually have more lycopene, which is a very beneficial nutrient, than those that are eaten fresh. So, you know, oftentimes we say we need to avoid things found in a can, but I really feel that tomatoes are the exception. So when you can get the higher levels of lycopene in something that is canned, it's an easy alternative, really takes no prep work, and is beneficial for your overall heart health. All right, we're ready to go back to the counter and finish this recipe up. Okay, we're ready for the final steps of our preparation. We're going to go ahead and just put some non-stick cooking spray in the bottom of our baking pan. We're going to start a layering process. So this actually requires about 18 of these corn tortillas. We're going to layer the bottom of this pan. It's all right if they overlap a bit. It's going to be our base. And we're going to go ahead and put a third of this mixture on top of that. I'm going to spread that out evenly. All right, when we have that done, then we're going to use a small amount of cheese, and that's going to be kind of a binder for us in here. I did choose a low-fat cheddar, a low-fat sharp cheddar. You could choose like a Mexican cheese, or maybe a pepper jack if you like a little bit of extra kick to your meal here. Just a small amount on here. And then we're going to go ahead and repeat that process. So we're going to put those in. Now it is important to use the corn tortillas. If we were to use flour tortillas in this recipe, we are going to get a little bit too high in our overall fat and saturated fat. So go ahead and make sure you're using the small corns. We'll layer it one more time. And we'll repeat that process. So you can tell with these corn tortillas and all of these great ingredients, this is going to be a very filling meal. You do need to be careful with portion size on this, but as long as we're watching that, this does serve up to 8 people. Watch your portion size, and this is going to be a heart healthy dinner. All right, we're going to put our final layer on top. Okay, I'm going to cover that with a little bit more cheese. And then this is ready for the oven. We're going to bake this for about 35 to 40 minutes. And when it's done, we're going to have a nice looking dish that's ready to go. Now to add a little bit of our vegetables onto this, we're going to go ahead and add some shredded lettuce with this. We're going to top this off with the remaining amount of salsa that we added into our recipe. We'll put that right on top. Remember, salsa is always a great addition. It's all vegetables, so we really don't worry about it too much. Be careful if you're buying it in a can or a jar. Make sure your sodium remains low. And that's it. We have a great recipe here. This is going to be extremely filling and makes for great leftovers. So if you enjoy a good Mexican dinner, here it is, ready to go. 40 minutes and you're set to serve your family. All right, we'll be back with our second recipe. All right, tonight we have a great meal. Have you ever gone to a restaurant and thought, gee, you know, I probably could make that at home? And you know what we really enjoy when we go out to our Chinese restaurant for that sweet and sour chicken. I have a great pineapple sweet and sour chicken recipe for you tonight, and it's not going to be that hard, and you're going to find that you can really save a lot of money by making it at home. We have some very basic ingredients that will be included in this. We have our fresh chicken breasts. We have green and red bell peppers. We have our standard garlic, which I like to add into most of my recipes. We have a light soy sauce, a balsamic vinegar. We're going to use pineapple. And then we're going to have our secret recipe ingredient of brown sugar and a little bit of ginger. When you put all these together, we're going to have a great recipe. You can serve this over a brown rice. You could serve it over an egg, any kind of a pasta. It's really going to make it for a filling meal. So we're just going to work on the actually sweet and sour chicken tonight, but feel free to add into that as you need. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we're going to do first. We're going to go ahead and start with our prep work. We're going to make about a pound of these chicken breasts. Now, we would like to have those rinsed off just a bit before you make them. You can go ahead and do that at home. We'll pull those out. We're going to dice those up. You know, the safest knife in your kitchen is one that's very sharp. So you can see that this is cutting pretty easily through this chicken. I'm going to trim off just a little bit of the fat. Keep it as low calorie and low fat as possible. Now, don't be fooled. Chicken does have some cholesterol to it. So this is not a cholesterol-free meal, but it does fall within those heart-healthy guidelines. So be careful what you eat throughout the day. Include chicken as one of your main protein sources, but do be aware that even chicken does contain some cholesterol. All right, so we're going to just cube those out just a bit. All right, once we have that done, I am going to cut my vegetables on the same cutting board tonight because they're all going into the same frying pan. I'm not concerned about cross-contamination. Now, if I wasn't going to add my vegetables until a later time, I would want to choose a fresh cutting board. Remember, that's where we oftentimes find ourselves having problems in the kitchen or having any kind of foodborne illness, and that's that cross-contamination. So always set that aside. Make sure that you're being safe in the kitchen, following good hygiene practices, washing our hands in between our food items, and make sure that your chicken, your raw chicken, is always washed up quickly when you're done. All right, so we have a nice diced cube chicken there. We're going to go ahead with our green pepper. Remember, we're going to cut that into 4 segments. And that leaves our seeds behind. Nice, easy cleanup there. We'll go ahead and just julienne those first, and then break them down into diced green pepper. Now, if you like those smaller pieces, go ahead and continue with your chopping. We'll just do this for time's sake. Cut that off. Remember, our green pepper is going to be a bit more mild. Our red is going to have a little more kick to it. And our yellow is our sweeter pepper. This depends on how long they've been left on the vine to grow. So if you're not a huge pepper fan, you might want to start with the green and build up, or the yellow for that sweet flavor. And there we go. Cut up our red real quick. You know, in a stir fry, we really could add any kind of vegetables that you'd like. You can add things like onions, fennel, even squash would go well with this. So whatever you think you'd like to have in there would fit well. And I would always encourage you to increase your vegetable intake as much as possible. Remember, with the Mediterranean diet too, we're looking for 7 to 9 servings. This is an increase over what we've had in the past with our My Pyramid, which the government has now gone to My Plate. They still are at a recommendation of 5 servings. Through the Heart of New Ulm, we found that even at 7 to 9, we can still have room to improve with our fruits and vegetables. Most of those should come from vegetables, but about 3 to 4 of those servings can be fruits throughout the day. All right. Now that our basic prep work is ready to go, we're going to go ahead and move over to the stove and make this up. Okay, now that we're at the stove, we're going to go ahead and start adding these ingredients in. First thing we want to do is heat up our pan. We're going to add just a small amount of olive oil. Now, olive oil does have a distinct flavor, so if it's not something you fancy, you're welcome to go ahead and switch to a basic vegetable or a canola oil. That works just as well. Remember, your first pressing on your olive oil is going to have the highest level of antioxidants, so your virgin olive oil, but it's also going to have the strongest flavor of olive. So keep that in mind. If you can add it in, that's great. And if you're not fond of the flavor, stick with your canola oil, and you'll still get those good unsaturated fats. Remember, that's what we're looking for. Okay, we're going to start off with our chicken. We're going to get that to brown just a bit. You do want to make sure your chicken does get cooked all the way through. With poultry, we're looking at about 160 degrees if you were to take the temperature. The easiest way is to make sure your juices are running clear and that there is no pink remaining in your chicken. I do have my oven set at about a medium-high heat. We don't want to overcook the outside of our chicken. Remember, we're trying to get that cooked all the way through. I did try to cut my pieces about even. You know, if you have a large piece, it's going to take longer and you're going to overcook your smaller pieces. So do try to cube those in a pretty symmetric or even manner. All right, and you can see that's browning up really quickly. This again is going to be about a 15 to 20 minute recipe, and you're going to really have a great meal with this. The unusual piece of this is we're combining both fruits and vegetables in the same dish. We do get our protein from our chicken, and we have our peppers, and then we're also using pineapple. And that's really what gives you the sweet piece of this meal. Now, when I purchased my pineapple, I did buy crushed pineapple in the can. And the key thing to be looking for is to make sure that it's in 100% natural fruit juice. If at any time you're buying things that are in a light syrup or especially a heavy syrup, we're just adding a lot of extra sugar, and it does take away the benefit of the fruit. The same holds true when you're buying juices. Unless your container says 100% natural fruit juice, you don't want any sugar added, or you're going to increase your overall sugar intake. So keep an eye on that. And that's how we're going to keep our overall sugar intake low and make sure we're still following our heart healthy guidelines. All right, that looks pretty good. We're going to go ahead and add in our peppers. We're going to brown those up for a while, get those all nice and softened off. And then just to add a little bit of extra flavor, a little bit of good heart healthy principles, I'm going to go ahead and add about a tablespoon of garlic to this recipe as well. I do like to buy the pre-cut, the pre-minced garlic. It works just as well. It does keep for quite some time, and it makes it easy to put things together. You know, when we're making our recipes, the last thing we want to do is invest a lot of time into our prep work. When we have a family waiting for a meal, we need to get it on the table. By doing things like buying the pre-minced garlic, we're just saving ourselves some time while still offering our family a good, heart healthy meal. All right, while this browns up, we're going to just make our dressing on here. And with that, we're going to use about just a little bit of, there we go, about a quarter cup of our soy sauce. And again, this is a low sodium soy sauce. We want to be very careful with soy sauce or fish fish sauce. Those are going to be very high. And then we're going to add a little bit of cornstarch to that to thicken it up. So it's making like the sauce or the gravy for this recipe. I'm going to mix that up. Maybe a little more. All right. We keep browning our dinner here. And the chicken is going to continue to brown as we make this meal. So it didn't have to be completely brown by the time we put those vegetables in, but to get it started and give it a head start on those vegetables. All right, we're going to mix up our soy sauce and cornstarch there. I'm going to add that into our dish. Okay. Now we're ready to add our pineapple. Add that in as well. And we do include all of the juice with that as well. All right, so once we get that going, we want to bring that back to a boil. Turn down our heat just a little bit. Okay, so now we have our sour, which came from that mixture of the vinegar and the cornstarch. We have our sweet from the pineapple. We're going to just add one more shot of sweet into there. And it is kind of the secret ingredient. We're going to add just a little bit of dark brown sugar. This is really going to add a lot to this dish. You know, with this small of a quantity, it's really not going to add a lot of carbohydrate, just a little bit of extra flavor that we need. And the final ingredient then is going to be our ground ginger. Shake a little bit on that on top, and that is again to taste. So if you're not a fan of ginger, you surely can leave that out. Or if you're a big fan, go ahead and add a little bit more. It does not add a lot of calories, but it is going to add a distinctive flavor. We're going to bring that back up to a nice rolling boil. It's going to boil off with just a little bit of our liquid, and we're about done. Now this served over some brown rice or basmati rice. Basmati rice will be great. Want to make sure we're choosing those whole grain rices. Long grain, make sure that the sodium is low if you're buying something prepackaged and you're set to go. So you can see that this is going to be a tasty meal. We have both fruit and vegetable in there, low calorie and high in protein. So that's it, nice and easy, and it's quick and tasty for your family. So instead of heading out for Chinese, give it a try at home and you're going to find you're going to save a lot of money and really make a good, heart healthy meal. So that's it for this week's episode of What's Cooking, New Ulm. I'm Rebecca Fliszar. See you next week.